Hello, beautiful people. Today's little message is about the simplicity of change, but the difficulty of what that means in practice. What I mean is the steps to change are simple. Just don't do it, or do it differently, right? Simple. So then how come we can't stop ourselves from having that full bottle of wine or the chocolate bar or screaming like a maniac with road rage? Mostly because our brains and our bodies have been doing the same thing for years. Did you know that most of us run on autopilot 95% of the time? Autopilot makes our world very easy. Autopilot is all about survival. And when we find a way of surviving that is comfortable enough, whatever that looks like, autopilot kicks in. And then our simple little human pea brains wire our neural pathways to keep us on our comfortable enough path. And over time, the path becomes a road and the road becomes a highway. And before we know it, there's no other route to take because we have built a whopping big freeway out of our neural pathways. And now our brain says, this is the only path you can take. I have you on autopilot because it's easier for me, the brain, when I don't need to think. So we can say that we're going to do something differently, but our brains and our bodies are going to fight tooth and nail against it because they want to take the route that's well worn and familiar, even when it doesn't lead to happiness. So then how do we reprogram our autopilot settings, especially when we know it's easier said than done? Very, very slowly with practice and patience. And I absolutely acknowledge the difficulty of practice. The first 20 odd years of my life were very traumatic. As a result, I've been practicing change and self-awareness for decades. For example, in my 20s, I started practicing patience before I went traveling after a very good friend said to me, "Now, Kylie, they do things differently around the world. Do try to be patient." To me, she was pointing out the fact that I wasn't a very patient person. And when I thought about it, as much as the comment stung, I was pretty feisty, so there was probably a lot of truth to it. Anyway, naturally, my early practices of patience weren't always successful, but I kept practicing at every opportunity, and after 5 years of travel, I got a job working with the elderly so I could practice more patience. And now, after 25 years, I can honestly say I am a very patient person. But that doesn't mean I've stopped practicing patience. That just means over the years, I have reprogrammed my autopilot to include patience. It can be very difficult to practice something simple because our little human pea brains don't like change, and our massive egos think that our survival skills are working just fine. But with a little practice and a little patience, we really can change this crazy world into good vibrations because at the core of us all is love.